Hi, I'm Hrudaya Raj, and you are watching the author interview. Joining me is young adult fiction writer Anoshi Saretzki, and this is her debut novel that we will be delving into today. Anoshi, welcome.
Thank you, Raj. I really appreciate you having me.
It's an absolute honor for me to host you. And before we get into your book, let's start with who is Anoshi?
Well, Raj, I am very proudly South African. I think that's the underlying golden thread in my entire life. I am a mom. My daughter's 12. My day job is that I'm a head of marketing in the steel industry currently, and I do have a psychology background. And now I see myself as a fantasy author. So it's quite a number of hats.
Indeed, a woman that wears so many hats. And I can tell that you have the confidence of someone that applies themselves to the best of their ability in every facet of life. And one such facet is, of course, your writing. So let's talk about your debut novel and how the inspiration for it came about.
Absolutely. So probably about 20 years ago, I had this insane dream. And in the dream, I couldn't shake it. I mean, it was just the a memory of it that had lasted me for quite some time. And I didn't really do anything with it. Now, over this entire period, I'd tried, started and stopped a number of different stories. Nothing really stuck. But was when my daughter was born, and I think she was about 5 years old, that I decided, okay, let me see what can I do with this idea. And the idea was it was a book for my daughter, so primarily it just something to leave for her, like just stories about our family and where we are from, just woven into the storytelling part of it, based on this dream or the concept that I basically had. So it kind of all came together. She galvanized me into putting that pen to paper, the proverbial pen to paper, and start writing and just putting down my ideas. And then once I did start it, it just flowed from there.
I think it's so amazing that you persevered, even though there were ideas that came and went, and you didn't feel that, it was the time to flesh those ones out. And then came this. Now, the cover itself, it holds such strength in it. And I firmly believe that the woman on the back bears a stark resemblance to you. Now, of course, this is set in the Drakensberg. Why the Drakensberg?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's where my family's from, my father's family. So if I was going to give my daughter a message, I was going to always have the setting be someplace familiar, someplace that links back to her heritage, and that's why the Drakensberg. But also, it's my favorite place in the world. I mean, I've traveled a lot. I'm pretty well traveled, but it's really only the Drakensberg where I feel like, okay, when I'm there, I can just and she sees it, she knows it as well. So, it's not something she doesn't know. She knows we go to the Drakensberg as often as we can, and it's something she's completely familiar with now.
I think that it's what really struck me when I found out where it was based is the fact that if you're South African, you know of the Drakensberg. If you live in KZN, there's a possibility that somewhere along your schooling career, there was a field trip that took you to the Drakensberg or a family vacation. And so when you go on hikes there, whether it's during the day or at night, you feel a sense of magic. And that is something that I felt translated very well in terms of your book. Now, the name is very curious, and I'm not sure if I'm mispronouncing it, so if I butcher it, please correct me. But Julhoen is an unusual name. Tell me how you came up with this name.
Sure. So in my effort to keep the book as South African as possible, I try to find a name that tied back to the people on whom the Juluwasi are based. So the Juluwasi people are half of what I dreamed up, but the other half of it is they're based on the San people of South Africa. And the San people of South Africa, as you might be aware, are the oldest tribe on earth.
Yes,
Genetically, they are the oldest, and they're right here in South Africa. It's very sad to me that that they're quite marginalized in
yes.
South Africa, and they're looking for their own identity and their own sense of place, and that's been a battle. I felt deeply that this ancient people that live in South Africa, if it's not about giving them a voice necessarily, but just visibility, I guess. And the word Juluwasi comes from the name of a San tribe called the Jutuan. Now, the way you spell in the San language, it's like a J-U with a stroke
Mm-hmm.
T-O-O-N. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. And so it's pronounced Jutuan, but I that was going to be impossible for everyone to pronounce. So I just kind of adapted it to make it sound just more anglicize it a little bit, and I came up with Juluan.
Now, I love the way in which you pay homage to the ancestral nature of South Africa and, of course, the San people. When we talk about the cradle of humankind, the cradle is very much still in existence in the form of the San people. And to be something so unique, I would say, because not everyone can say that humanity began in their country, in their home space. So I really love the way in which you created this title. And also, I think bridging that gap between fantasy and reality was something that you did really well. I can see that it was so well thought out. And when you chose the genre of fantasy, what was it that led you to this? Because it's something that I think we are under the misconception that there isn't much fantasy literature in South Africa by South African authors. So, what was it that drew you to fantasy?
It was always going to be fantasy for me. I always say, when I growing up in primary school, my dad, was really into comic books, and that's sort of where it started. So not Marvel initially, or it was Harvey Comics, and that's basically what I started reading and consuming, and that's where my love of reading started to really grow. But obviously, I'm a huge, huge Marvel fan. So whether it's sci-fi or fantasy. I think I'm always drawn to that particular genre. So when it came to writing something, it was definitely always going to be fantasy for me. I just don't see myself writing a romance novel or any other kind of fiction or non-fiction. That kind is it's fantasy or nothing.
I love that. I absolutely love how steadfast you're in that fantasy or nothing. Now, aside from the book itself, what were some of the lessons you learned along the way in creating your debut novel?
Yeah, look, it's very, very tough. I think one of the biggest things that I had to overcome was my struggle to believe that I could write a book. It's as it's funny because the whole character arc of Xana, which is the main female character, is going from a sense of disempowerment. She's going through a really tough time. It feels like the world is against her. It feels like she's going crazy on the inside. You know, having mental health problems, having real trouble fitting into the world, and the journey of empowerment to empowerment. It turned out that that was also my journey as I was writing the book over the 5 year period. Because while I did that, within myself, I had to keep my demons to go. You just have to keep writing, keep writing. My next book, which is the follow on from Juluwan, took me a month to pen. In total, Juluwan took me 5 years to get through
Wow.
because obviously there's still the editing and the post editing and the dev editing and all whatever has to happen. But if I tell you the journey of just believing in myself was the biggest lesson, was the biggest thing that I had to come to terms with and believe in myself. And I think I still struggle with it to a larger degree, but it still doesn't prevent me from then just sitting down and writing the next book, which is fantastic. So I think that would be one of the biggest things. But listen, you have to learn how to write. It is one of the most important things. So I did do a writing course with a fiction writing course with one of South Africa's authors. He's pretty well known for his detective kind of novels, etc. And that Mike Nickel, that's his name. That's who I did it with. And I basically sent Juluwan through for a critique. Yeah, it was an editor I'd found in the United Kingdom who lives and breathes, Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and this entire genre of speculative fiction. So she was definitely the right person to teach me quite a lot about it. So I think those three things: believing in yourself, learning about your craft, mastering your craft, and keep going even when you're having some tough days. Those are my key takeouts.
That is some profound lessons that you went through. And I can see why it was definitely a labor of love, but also a labor of self-love. And it's also something that's worth noting that as people of South Asian descent, we didn't necessarily see writers that looked like us growing up. We didn't read about places that we were familiar with or peoples that we were accustomed to. And so I think that definitely plays a part in that self-doubt. And I thank you for doing what you've done to pave the way for young authors, for female authors, for women of color who have stories within them. And I'd like to share one of my favorite quotes, and I'd also like to ask you to share yours. For me, it is, hey, yeah, are you feeling more ready for all of this? Nope, definitely not. That's okay. You can feel afraid and still walk into the belly of the beast, one step at a time, okay? And I think that ties in so well with what you just said. And I'd like to ask you to share your favorite right now.
100%. I think I try to put as much of that in as possible. My audience were young adults, and South African young adults go through a lot. They really go through it in this country. A lot of people, a lot of kids live out in the rural areas, and I guess my message to them is that it doesn't matter where you start out in life. You can still have your dreams. You can still, achieve your dream, whatever it is. Don't give up. So my quote, hold on a second. So we should always remember that even out of the worst nights, the glorious light of day is still possible. Sometimes something even better than you could ever have imagined emerges out of the chaos. So, it's similar in that it's sentiment that no matter what you're going through, however tough it seems, you're going to come out on top. Just keep your positive attitude. Like you said, remain steadfast and the work that you're doing to get to where you need to be. So, I wrote it for South African kids, and I really hope that it lands with them, the message.
I think it is so incredibly beautiful, Anoshi, that not only did you pay respect to the country, to its people, to its heritage, you've also offered that same respect, love, and kindness to young adults who, as you've mentioned, go through so much in this country. And for me, I've loved reading since I was a child, and it was often a form of escape. But your book to me feels like a warm embrace. And for that,
Thank you.
I would like to thank you. And before you go, please do share where can your book be found? And of course, the sequel.
Yep. So the book can be found in all major retailers. So it's in Exclusive Books, Bargain Books, Wordsworth, Amazon, Direct, which is a South African online platform, and the Crest Publishers, as well as Turn the Page Distribution. My next book is currently a work in progress. I have finished it. It's currently needing to go through its next edit, which is a line edit, like grammar, spelling, that kind of thing. So I'm working through that at this point in time, but I'm hoping to be able to put it out by the end of the first quarter.
All right. Well then, readers young and old, keep an eye out for Anoshi Saretzki. Her legacy will live on, and don't forget this cover. Don't forget that you can write. You can do this. Anoshi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Raj. Have a great day.
You as well.